So, good morning, my dear students from your Silchar, Guwahati, Dibrugarh, Jorhat, Tripura, Manipur, and Jharkhand, Angas, and also Delhi. Anyway, we are discussing about the trauma of the cervical spine. So far, we have discussed about the anatomy, mechanism of fractures, the clinical findings, and also we have discussed what are the common fractures may happen in the model, and also correlation with this with the data of the X-ray. Today, we will go a bit further to talk about the management part. We will talk about the management part. As usual, again we start with some philosophy. So this time, yesterday, last class we have discussed about the philosophy of your Gita. Gita, fourth chapter, we are talking. Janma karmesya dibbamyang eveti takta. Takta dehang punadama neti mavadi sajana. What is the meaning of this phrase? It says, Lord says to Arjuna, that those who understand the divinity of my birth and my activities need not have to reborn in this world again. So that is what he is mentioning to Arjuna, that those who understand the divinity of my birth and my activities need not have to reborn in this world. So that is your today's philosophy. As I said, Gita is not a religious book, it is a book of philosophy of life. So today we will be talking about the treatment part of the cervical spine injury. As you know, cervical spine injury is a catastrophe. Many times it lands up into more severe consequences. Sometimes people die instantly because of this injury or impact of the injury. Number 1 point. Number 2 point is that there may be also injury in the other part of the body, spine. Non-conjugal injury means, what is the meaning? Meaning is that sometimes you will find a cervical spine injury is there, but on the other hand, there may be injury in the lumbar spine or the thoracic spine also. So around 15 to 20% of the cases of the cervical spine may associate with spinal injury in distant area. Keeping aside the other things are always there. Associated injuries may be there, but in the spine itself also there is a possibility of injury to the other part, around 15%. That is one point. So we'll talk step by step about the management part of the cervical spine. Number 1 point is that in the initial treatment of cervical spine injury, while the patient is coming to you with casualty, we essentially treat all the cases as cervical spine injury until and unless proved otherwise. Applying a collar, okay, fine. Then subsequently also go for the investigation where you need, and to release those who do not have to undergo. That is a exclusion criteria, or the criteria by which you can exclude this part of patient. That is one criteria. Now those patients who have got injury and associatedly there is a spinal SCI, spinal cord injury. Now what is the modality of treatment? Here. Now we are going to specific. Here we do have associated fractures. We'll talk about that. But initially the role of steroid. Let us talk about the steroid also. So there is a lot of debate in the use of steroid. Particularly, we are using the Solimedrol or something like that. Yes or no? So there is a debate. But what is the logic of giving this your steroid in this case? And what is the time period? We'll talk about that. You know that any sort of injury in your body, supposing somebody hitting your nose, what happens? Subsequently, there is a swelling, there is redness, so all the inflammatory things are happening. Yes or no? Dolor, rubor, pallor, all these things happening. That means post-traumatic cascade of inflammation. That means trauma induces the inflammatory changes. Yes or no? This is true. It is happening in all the trauma cases, and that is always there. Same thing is applicable for your spinal cord injury also. Now, how does the spinal cord get injured? There are two types. One is your primary trauma, another is your secondary trauma. What is primary? Primary is because of the impact of the force causing lacerations, contusions, all the things, compressions. Yes, the primary impact of the force causing damage to the cord is a primary trauma. Nobody can reverse it. What is happening is happening. Then what next? Next is that there is a consequence of the post-traumatic inflammatory process that's herald another consequence of your injury to the cord. This is called secondary trauma to the cord. Now what is secondary trauma? The secondary trauma is essentially because of the post-traumatic inflammation. As it happening to your nose while somebody hitting, same thing is happening there in the cord also, tissues. The cells are lacerated, the permeability is lost, sodium influx, calcium influx, cells are swollen, increased metabolites, free radicals coming out, inflammatory cascades, then also the influx of your polymorph, macrophage, so many things happening. This is a consequence, normally happen. What is the result? So essentially these two results of your edema, one. Number two is a poor lipid peroxidation. So these things are also important. See, it leads to a post-traumatic cascade of inflammatory changes at the traumatized cord. So it leads to your accumulation of fluid, edema is there, that leads to the secondary damage of the cord. This is called secondary damage. And it usually starts after 4 hours of this injury, after 4 hours. That is why, and now what is the role of this steroid? You know, steroid is a good anti-inflammatory drug. Yes or no? We many times use steroid in various consequences of treatment, and it looks many times a strong anti-inflammatory drug. That is how it is going to give benefit to curtail down the secondary post-traumatic insult to the cord. This is clear? So that is why the logic of giving steroid is there. Though there is a controversy, but in practical aspects, most of the institutes throughout the world, they are using steroid as a drug of choice in the initial period of treatment of SCI in the cervical cord. There are a lot of studies, NACSA studies, all the studies are there. Controversy is there, even then it is being used. Then what is the dose? You know already 30 milligram raw. Number one point is that the time period of starting the anesthesia. If the patient is coming late, probably there is no benefit of giving steroid. If he is coming within hours, particularly 2 hours, 3 hours, that is most important. Why? As I said, that this post-inflammatory cascade of inflammation starts around 4 hours. So if you somehow start these medicines before that, it is going to give good result. So thereby, you can minimize this edema, minimize this inflammatory cascades of events there at the traumatized area, thereby reducing edema, thereby of course you can stabilize it, and probably it will curtail down further damage to the cord. The dose is now 30 milligram per kg bolus dose. Then subsequently in 24 hours is 5.4 milligram per kg in 24 hours next. There is no point giving if the patient is coming after 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. No. The rule of steroids is actually limited to those persons who is coming very early. That part should be clear. That's actually the rule of steroids and how much to give and what is the time frame. Because you have a limitation. You cannot give steroids in only cases who are coming late. There is no benefit. If the cascades of events is already started, probably there you do not get the benefit of giving this steroid. So that is why the logic of giving steroid, any benefit is basically to reduce the post-inflammatory changes in the SCI cord and get the benefit of it. This is okay. Now, let us talk to the trauma part, now injury part. Now, as I said, the injury in the cervical spine, we do consider the craniocervical junction and the subaxial junction. And most of the cases of the cervical spine can be treated conservatively. Most of the treatment of the cervical spine injury can be managed by conservative treatment. That is clear. Yes. And to some extent there is a role of surgery in the craniocervical junction as well as the subaxial part also. It is true, there is benefit, but need to do surgery. Okay, let us talk about the conservative part and also what are the things available with us to render this conservative treatment. We know many times we apply the cervical collars. Various types of collars are there. I am sorry that I am unable to show you here. Anyway, but you try to understand. They are extreme of use. You have so many cervical. These are all called cervical orthosis. All these things are clubbed together to tell us orthosis. Now you find somewhere there is soft cervical collar, one extreme. Another it is going up to the level of your halo. And all the others available orthosis are lying in between. What is the meaning? Meaning is that how much instability can be provided by the orthosis is being lined in accordingly. Now what is the meaning? That the soft cervical collar, which commonly we do use in a soft tissue injury or acute cervical disc lesion sometime, essentially actually does not provide a effective immobilization. Does not provide. It is basically a psychological factor to the patient that he is applying something, but there is restrictions of the movements are minimal. Yes. Then you do have rigid cervical collar. Then you do have Philadelphia collar. Then you have SOMI. SOMI means sterno-occipital manual immobilizer. SOMI brace. Sterno-occipital manual immobilizer. SOMI. Then come the halo. Halo is a device which is invasive sort of thing. A ring is being applied there in the equator of the head. Pins are being fixed and base is there in the base torso fixed. So that is extreme. So the halo gives the most good immobilization in the cervical spine, particularly at the level of cervicothoracic junction. The cervicothoracic junction is a difficult part to immobilize with this conventional orthosis, but halo gives best, right? It also provides good stabilizations to the other fractures also. So halo is the maximum, minimum is a subcervical collar, others are lying in between. That means somebody, say in case of your subcervical collar, he can do rotation, he can do flexion, extension to some extent. A rigid cervical collar, flexion, extension is rigid, but rotation part is not very much addressed. Philadelphia collar to some extent is good. That is cannot do flexion, extension and rotation to some extent. But even then it is not a perfect immobilizer to the cervical spine. The perfect is your halo. Earlier days in our while we were students, we do use Minerva jacket. Minerva jacket, actually the concept is coming from the warrior of this Greece, Minerva. You saw that the old movies, Troy, or other movies, you will find that they are using armor. So that is basically to protect them from the enemy. So same thing about pinchable, that you are applying a plaster here, and this gives a perfect your immobilization. It is true that some extent we do still use this, particularly in children who is very much reluctant to continue this cervical orthosis, and probably still it is good in those patients who are accepting it. Otherwise you will find, but there people are very reluctant to apply the this orthosis, cervical orthosis, pretext of your worm, something like that. They used to remove it, and that is not a good thing. It's happened, and particularly children also, it is very difficult to keep it in contact for long. That is another point. So that is why even today also, to certain cases, you can apply Minerva jacket. So these are your orthosis available for conservative treatment of the cervical spine. Conservative treatment. So who are the candidates to go for this conservative treatment? Softly say a injury in the craniocervical area is an area where you do give a immobilization. If there is no displacement, stability is still there, but there is a fracture of the Jefferson's fractures. But even also hangman fractures 1 and 2. Yes, even fractures at the base of the occiput. These are then again injury in the cervical spine down below, spinous process fractures, or without neurological deficit. These are all candidates to go for your conservative treatment. Like the wedge fractures with a instability, I mean to say it is not coming up to 25%. So those fractures which are stable, not demarcated as unstable, can be managed by this conservative treatment with the help of this all the things orthosis I have discussed. In the craniocervical junctions, probably it is best to go for this halo. Particularly dislocations of the craniocervical area, there is a halo is the best. And halo is also good for the cervicothoracic junction. In between, you can apply all these orthosis which are necessary thing to be, depending upon the need. That part is clear. That is your rule of your conservative treatment and use of various orthosis according to need. Then another part in the treatment of your conservative treatment in the cervical spine is the use of skull traction. The use of skull traction is basically, though is an invasive technique, but it is actually conservative method of treatment. A traction is being applied at the skull with the help of your Crutchfield tongue. Yes, Crutchfield tongue. Crutchfield tongue, you have to apply about a tongue above this, in the level of the equator, above the tragus. I mean to say this is air bowl. Then fix it there. And depending upon this, that you may sometimes go a bit anteriorly, sometimes go posteriorly, whether the pull is being flexion in extension. We'll talk about that. What is the meaning of this? But anyway, that is a skull traction, is a type of your skeletal traction, is a method of conservative treatment in certain cases. Well, there is also limitation there, that you cannot apply the tractions for every time, 1 point. Number 2 is that how much weight supposed to give and what is the position. We'll talk about that. So I am talking about the conservative treatment first, then we will go for the operative treatment. So skull traction is essentially a device for your, this traction, how it is going to help. This traction is helping you to align the structures, be in flexors, be the ligaments, as you are getting the benefit of applying traction of flexor femur or the injury around the knee joints. So this traction is helping to align the traumatized structures, right? It essentially also helps in decompression sometimes. Supposing there is a burst fracture at the level of C5, which is causing compressions at the core, attractions may relieve this compression. It is said that even in compression fracture also, application of the skull tractions can help you to reduce this, increase the height of the vertebra. Yes, 2 things. One, how much weight? 1 point. Then also in the traction, then what are most important, one of the indications is dislocation of the cervical spine. So once there is a dislocation there in the cervical spine, so if it is this bilateral dislocations, so it is bilateral dislocation, vertebra is going this way, there you can apply the tractions. The use of tractions again in acute, in one go reductions, or you can go for gradual reductions technique. That is we are going to talk. Now, number 1 point is how to apply the tractions. Points are there. I told you the equator above the trachea, then you put the tractions here. Sometimes a bit anteriorly, sometimes posteriorly, depending upon the tractions which axis you need. 1 point. Number 2 point is how much weight. Number 2 point, how much weight you give 5 you know, for the head, you give 10 pounds. 8, 5 pounds for each intervertebral disc. So if the lesson is there in the C5, C6, then you have to count it like this, 10 plus 5, 5 plus 5, like that. Got my point? So depending upon the level of insult, so weight will be more if it is 5, 6. The weight will be less if it is 2, 3. Got my point? So this is being dependent on this one point. That is another weight. Regarding the dislocation, reduction of the dislocation technique and application of the weight with the help of your skull tractions, there are two methods. One, people used to go for acute reduction technique. Acute reduction technique means you are increasing the weight and observe this with the help of your lateral view of the cervical spine and see how it is reduced or not. In the process of your giving tractions, usually the head should be flexion. So if you do give a traction in a flexion, so it will open up this gap. Once there is reductions, you can again do it extension. So thereby you are you getting my point? So if you are giving a traction in flexion, that will help you to reduce it. But once you achieve the reductions, you can come back to extension, thereby locking it. That is one method. But whether you go for acute reduction technique or gradual reduction techniques, there is some sort of thing to be required. So because in case of acute traumatic conditions, if you are giving too much weight, you can say people can use to go over 50 pounds, 60 pounds weight can be given. It is in the literature. But even then you have to be careful also that these patients may have some other injury also, where if you apply the tractions may develop neurological deficit. So while you are doing two things, while increasing the weight, you have to go for the lateral view of the cervical spine to see the reductions. Equally also you look for the neurological status of the person, whether it is deteriorating or not. So you have to be very observant and he should be under your observations every time, that whether it is reduced, okay fine, but equally does it developing some neurological deficit that is detrimental, you do not want it. So that is why some people used to go for gradual corrections by increasing the weight gradually and getting the reductions done gradually. There are two ways of getting reductions with the help of tractions in cervical spine. Okay, fine. Now, question arises, can you go for the traction every time? Certainly not. So there are 2-3 conditions where you are supposed to not apply the tractions. Though traction is good for cervical spine injury, most of the time you can apply. Say compression fracture, burst fracture, dislocation, even unilateral dislocations people are giving. Unilateral dislocation, people used to say they can do some manipulation also with the help of tractions. Unilateral, supposing there is a unilateral distraction there, dislocation, unilateral, one side. Then what they are doing with the help of the tractions which is being applied, you can do manipulation also. So giving compression force at the non-dislocated side and giving distracting force in the dislocated side. Are you getting my point? So suppose in the right side he is having dislocation on a 5-6 level and left side is normal. So left side you are giving push and right side you are giving pull with the help of your skull traction. Correct? Then after doing so you can do rotational movement, thereby you can achieve reduction also in unilateral dislocations of the spine. Are you getting my point? This maneuver people are trying for the bilateral dislocation also for acute reduction technique, as if we are doing some reduction technique for the shoulder joint or hip joint. You know my point? That is a maneuver people are trying. If somebody trying in the anesthesia also, but you have to be careful by development of neurological deficits of the persons. That is okay. Now, can you apply traction in every case? Certainly no. It is detrimental also, particularly if there is a dissociation, say the craniocervical disc. So there is a tear of the tentorium or tentorium mandibulara and the ligaments here at the craniocervical junction, this area is not a good thing to apply the tractions. If you are applying the tractions there, probably there will be more damage to the person. One point. Number two, we talk about the hangman fractures. They are in your C2 hangman fractures. Traumatic spondylolisthesis type A and 3, type 2A and 3. Type 2A and 3. These groups is not a good candidate to go for your traction. So you have to be very careful the application of tractions. Though most of the time you can apply it, but equally you have to observe it. Supposing in the lateral view you are seeing that this gap between the craniocervical junction is increasing than a normal level, probably it is not a good thing happening, because there may be injury to the craniocervical junction ligaments, which are causing a distracting force and causing further damage to it. Is it clearer? So that is why this tractions part is important in the various conservative treatment. Now we will talk something about the operation also. That is all I are talking about the conservative treatment, the protocols of giving the steroids, the selections of the various type of cervical orthosis depending upon the need, and select it according to the need of the persons, and how much serving, how we have discussed. Now today we will be also talking about some sort of operative treatment here in the cervical spine area. So in a case supposing there is an injury to the Jefferson's flexors happening there, displacement is there. So here probably a surgery is a good thing. Necessarily if you do a surgery here, you cannot give any fixation in the C1. So necessarily you have to fix the occiput here. On the other hand, you have to give some base at the C2 or C3 level. So there is a plate system, so you can go for this like this, and a plate is being fixed like this to stabilize that part. These operations are also useful for craniocervical junction instability. So in these situations, you have to go for the fixations with the occiput and a base at the C3, C2 level, and bypassing the C1, then you are getting a fixation there. 1 point. That is one. Then also there are operations where the odontoid process flexors, particularly. Odontoid flexor, actually we have discussed that in C1, 2 and 3. 1 is a tip which is do not need operative treatment. 2 invariably needs operations, and 3 doesn't need most of the time. It is undisplaced because it is a basal sort of flexors, so union chance is very high, can be treated conservatively. But 2 which is a case where you may need to go for operations. People used to try to do fixation from the anterior side, a screw being passed from the anterior side, from the downward vertebra, and do the fixation with a single screw to the odontoid process from the anterior side. Under C-arm, both in AP and lateral simultaneously possible. Are you getting my point? So you are going to pass a screw percutaneously to the C2 from the down below vertebra, with this trajectory being passed through the odontoid process. But you have to be very careful that you are going through the bottom part. You have to pass a guide wire, and you have to be very good orientations of the C-arm in the AP and lateral view. Somebody use 2 C-arm at a time. One is for AP and one is for lateral simultaneously, so that your trajectory is correct. Because a deviations from the CM may lead to a detrimental effect. That is for the anterior. But can it be addressed by posteriorly? Yes, it can be. It can be addressed by Number 2 is that from anterior side also. Let us finish the anterior part. In the odontoid process which is coming late, or there is a fail non-union, probably a fusion of the anterior side is a tense oral through the oral vertebra. Fiction of the C2 and C3 is possible. People used to do. But can it be addressed by posteriorly? Yes. Most of the surgeons, they used to do it at posterior side. What? This is fusions of the C1 and C2. C1, C2. A technique called galley technique. Actually, basically you are putting some graft and wear technique. Yes. So that can be fused with the help of, that is a simple technique. Nowadays people are using screw fixation with the your pedicle screw fixations technique for the C2 and C1. Possible. People are doing. Even people are trying to do a tense articular screw fixation from here through the C1 and C2. So these are the all modalities of treatment addressing from posterior side for fusion of C2 and C3. ঠিক আছে? So then simplest way is to passing wear technique or Galli technique, where you can do fusions of the C1 and C2. ঠিক আছে, sir? So these are the various operations can be done in the C1 C2. If it is not possible, people used to go for the halo. Halo is one of the way. Now in the subaxial part, as I mentioned already, that they go for the operative treatment and as well as the conservative treatment. For the dislocation, most of the time the conservative treatment. If the dislocation fail to be addressed by the conservative treatment, what next? What next? You necessarily go for the open technique. So open technique from posterior side, open technique can be done from the anterior side also. And fusion. What is there? The vertebra is being dislocated like this. Like this. It is going like anteriorly. So you have to go from posterior side, reduce it. After reductions, one can do fixations of this lateral mass with the help of your screw. The pedicle screw technique. Same. Lateral mass screws are a bit different. Polyaxial screw being used in the lateral mass most of the time. Though people try to do pedicle screw fixation, but as I said, pedicle screw fixation in cervical spine is a dangerous situation, and often it can be easily addressed by lateral mass fixation rather than the pedicle screw fixation. Clear? So that is a stabilization. But you see, if you are doing so, a slicing, see, what is mechanism that if you are doing this reduction like this, it is happening like this. It was dislocated. Now you are trying to do the reduction. While doing the reduction maneuver, what additional thing is happening there? The disc which is lying there may go posteriorly. Get my point? Not. See, there was a dislocation like this. I address it from posterior side to reduce it. Okay, reduction being done. So now it is being trying to do so, but meanwhile there is every possibility that this disc may go posteriorly, causing compressions of the cord. Happen. If he is developing more neural deficit, then you have to go for anterior side again to remove the disc, because you cannot remove the disc from posterior side. Then removal of the disc, do fusions of the part with the spacer or graft, and a plate fixation anteriorly is known as global fusion technique. What is my point? So see, I am again talking. See, if the case is there that there is a dislocation bilateral, that is C5, C6 level. Try to do the conservative treatment with traction which fail. You will take the patient for operations now. If you are doing so posteriorly, it can be done. It can be done with the towel clip holding here, towel clip holding here, then do the maneuver, sometimes leverage also, and you can reduce it. You can reduce it, then stabilize it with the help of your lateral mass fixation technique. But anteriorly, by doing so, you can slice this there is a slippage of your intervertebral disc. This may go posteriorly, may cause damage to the cord. Now, in these situations, again you have to go for anteriorly, remove the disc and fusion of the vertebra between two, with placing some graft and a plate on the anterior side. A separate plate. There are a lot of plates are available, locking and non-locking, which are holding here. This technique on going posterior and anterior is called global type of fusion. Sometimes posterior. This is clear? Another point I am going to talk is that anterior exposure here. That the anteriorly, supposing the C5 vertebra is having burst fracture. Yes? So that is going to cause the compression of the cord. Now what is the operation technique here? That you necessarily have to remove these fragments which is causing compression of the cord. There you have to expose the anteriorly, remove the whole vertebra, remove the adjacent two discs. Okay, make this cord free from these compressions. Then in this cord, this area, you can again fix it with a graft there or a case over there. A case you can apply there, then fix it. This is called corpectomy. You are removing the vertebral body, replace with a tricortical graft from the iliac crest, or you can replace with a case there and fix it with this above vertebra and down vertebra. This whole technique is called corpectomy and fusion. Yes, that other one was which I said the ACDF, means you have to remove the disc and do the fusion. So these are the common operative technique is done in the craniocervical junction and the subaxial junction. So in the anterior disc you are removing this ACDF, or sometime you have to remove this vertebra, decompress it, and fusion is with the help of your case or tricortical vertebra. You see, in nutshell, it is your outline of the treatment of the cervical spine injury. It is in nutshell. It is, we have addressed the craniocervical area, we have addressed the subaxial area, we have discussed these common problems which is not possible to be addressed by the conjunctive treatment, can be addressed by operative treatment also. The exposure may be anterior, exposure may be posterior also, depending upon the need. So thereby you can address various problem, surgical various problem in the cervical spine. Now we'll next class we'll talk some operative maneuver, what exactly you supposed to do for the lateral mass fixation, how it is being done, how you expose the posterior spine, and how you expose the anterior spine. We'll talk about this in next class. But till now, do you have anything to ask? Do you have anything to ask?